Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Start with a roll call. McKee here. Lanterman here. Bodema. Yep. Varenkamp
Here.
Nichols
Here.
Perfect. I'd like to stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, agenda approval. Is there anything from staff? I know there's a couple minor changes.
Item 7K has been updated, Mayor. Other than that, no other changes from staff.
Anything from council? I might add just a very brief mayor report on item 12 on a couple topics that will take, 2 minutes. Other than that, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Commission representatives, we have Lindsay and Jonathan, Planning and Parks and Trails.
Commissioner Lind is on the call.
Okay.
I believe Commissioner Schmidt as well, and then I think Commissioner Lind intends to be here within about the next 15 minutes in person.
Sounds good. And then we will go on to open forum for items not on tonight's agenda, and Jay can walk us through the rest of that.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you have something you'd like to share with the council or bring the attention to the community, please step up to the microphone, address the council, and share anything that is not on this evening's agenda. We receive no emails, no texts, no
Okay.
calls.
Then I think we're good.
Everybody must be happy with the job we're doing.
Or they're here.
We'll go with that.
Or they're here for one of the for next items. So we'll move on to presentations, of which we have a few. And we will start off with 6A, which is we have a couple employee longevity awards that we are recognizing. And
Yes,
turn it over to Jay.
Mayor and council and ladies and gentlemen joining us this evening. It's been said once, that the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And we are blessed to have a strong pack because we have committed and dedicated employees. And tonight we get to recognize 2 of them for their longevity, their committed service. We recognize here in Corcoran in 5-year increments. And so first this evening, we'd like to invite Shauna Zuther up center stage.
There we go, thank you. And I do have just a couple quick fun facts. 5 years is not as exciting for the fun facts because it's not that long ago. But 2019, that was 4 prime ministers ago for the United Kingdom. Avengers Endgame was released in theaters. The final, and personally I'll say terrible season of Game of Thrones was released. Queen Elizabeth II was the first, or made her first social media post at age 92. There was the infamous celebrity college admissions cheating scandal that year, and the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire in Paris. So, a little good, a little bad.
So one more applause, just thanking Shauna for 5 years in Corcoran. And now if he can make it up here, we'd like to invite Ryan Burns up. 30 years with the So for those of you who are wondering what just happened, why did she get the big thing and he got the little thing after 30 years? So employees receive the plaque at their 5 years, and then they receive in 5-year increments these blue rings that go onto the plaque. And so Ryan has a bunch of those rings, and he's just adding another one.
And I do have some better facts on this one to make you feel a little old there, Ryan. In 1994, which was 30 years ago, Friends premiered on NBC. The top TV show was Seinfeld. The highest grossing movie was Forrest Gump. The World Series was canceled that year due to the MLB strike. O.J. Simpson was arrested after the infamous white Bronco chase. Sony PlayStation was released in Japan, and Harry Styles was born on February 1st. So do with that what you will.
And I'll be brief. I wanted to say a couple words as well, and I'll be real brief. But Ryan's been a huge part of our police department's success for 30 years, and it's been incredible what he's accomplished during that time. So he's been, a patrol officer, corporal, lieutenant, and currently serving as a deputy director. He's been contributed to years of service supporting programs like firearm safety, truck safety, Night to Night, rodeo, country days. So much of what we do and our success is we owe to Ryan for a lot of his planning and coordination, and just the general way that he does business is one of the things that our police department is appreciated for in the community. When you look at how the department's grown from 3 full-time officers when Ryan started to now being at 13 with detectives and K-9 programs, and there's a lot that's happened over the years, and you've been a huge part of making all of that successful. And your planning and leadership is a huge part of why we're one of the safest cities in Minnesota. So thank you, Ryan, for all you've done for our Corcoran community and the police department.
Thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a big deal.
So, Ryan, since you're a critical part of it, if you can hold up a second. The Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training is the occupational regulatory agency charged with the vital responsibility of maintaining selection, education, and licensing standards for over 400 Minnesota law enforcement agencies that employ over 10,500 peace officers across our state. While the Post Board performs many functions, a significant portion of its responsibility is dedicated to conducting compliance reviews of Minnesota law enforcement agencies to ensure they're meeting legislative mandated training and department policies on use of force, firearms training, emergency vehicle operations, and pursuit driving training, as well as other mandated departmental policies. On July 9, 2024, a Post Board Standards Coordinator conducted a review at the Corcoran PD. After a comprehensive review of the records concerning mandated employee training and department policies, our department passed the review with flying colors. Ensuring all law enforcement agencies around the state are in compliance plays a pivotal role in maintaining the high level of professionalism we enjoy here in Corcoran and have for many years. That professionalism translates into quality law enforcement services for the citizens of Corcoran, and we recognize that professionalism today. So.
You want to take it? I'll take it.
Well, thanks everybody who came for that. For those who don't want to stay for the other less fun events,
No worries.
You can take a minute to depart. But for those who are really excited to stay for the audit discussion, you're welcome to stay.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We need a more fun name.
That was almost everyone.
Wow, what
Surprised to see staff also leaving on that.
Audit Palooza, perhaps?
There you go.
I didn't expect to see John.
Audit stuff.
No. Sounds like he'll only be here another couple weeks before he's a smart guy and gets down to Arizona.
Who?
Hamilton.
Going back to Arizona. Lake Havasu.
Oh, yeah, right on the border. Oh, Nevada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that beeping gonna go on forever?
No, it's just them going
Door
through the
will
door
close
because
here in a
there's such a
second.
large crowd
Oh, they're going
that
back.
it's barking, saying too many
Gotcha.
people.
Timed up.
We'll give it a minute. There we go. Perfect. Then we will move on to 6C, excuse me, which is the audit briefing from ABDO, and we have a representative from ABDO who will be presenting.
Just
Perfect silence for the audit presentation. Used to clearing out the room. Well, I appreciate you having me at your meeting this evening. My name is Justin Nelson. I'm a partner at ABDO. I've been doing the audit for a number of years in the city of Corcoran. I'd like to just first by saying a quick thank you to you as the council, Mr. Mayor, and the administration and staff for having us as your audit firm. Just to say a quick thank you to staff for all their hard work getting the audit completed. We just couldn't have done it without staff and all their help, so we appreciate their assistance as well. So, I don't know who's, okay, we got someone doing the slides. I'm gonna go through just a brief introduction. I will go over the audit results and some of the audit findings for 2023's audit. I will then go into some of the results of the general fund, other governmental funds, the enterprise funds, and I will close with some key performance indicators comparing the city of Corcoran to others in Hennepin County and in the class 5, which is under 10,000 population. So audit results for 2023. So we did issue a clean unmodified audit opinion, which is the opinion that the city is looking for. So we arrived at that opinion by testing a number of different transactions around paying of bills, looking at utility billing transactions, taxes, grants, paying of employees, what the council gets to make decisions, etc. So we do have a few findings that I will go over on the next slide, but first, as part of our audit, we are also required to test Minnesota state statutes, legal compliance, and other. The Office of the State Auditor does put guides on their website that we are required to test as part of our audit. A couple of examples of those items would be timely payment of bills, as well as lack of conflicts of interest with anybody in the city or on the council. So happy to report that we don't have any instances of non-compliance that we were able to cover in our audit for 2023. So we do have 5 audit findings that I will go over here briefly in the 2023 audit. A few of them are carryover from the prior year just due to some of the turnover that the city has experienced kind of in the finance department, as well as some newer ones, recently, but have been a part of the city of Corcoran's audit in prior years. So I'll start with right at the top there, and I'll start with material audit adjustment as well as escrow tracking. I'm going to kind of explain these two together. They really are similar issues. Some of the tracking of the escrows did lead to some accounting errors. There's some things that did need to be corrected in some bigger dollar amounts, taking things off the balance sheet and moving them to revenues, things of that nature. So again, there were just a few of those adjusting entries that needed to take place that were from the closed books of the 2022 audit. And again, just escrow tracking just in general as part of a process and things that are going on in the city. Although there's been significant progress in that, again, as we look at when things happened, when the turnover happened, just looking at the December 31, 2023 audit date that we did audit through, some of those issues did still exist. And again, as part of the city's response, I think they're well on their way to eliminating both of those findings.
Can we ask questions or do we wait to the end?
Sure.
So I just want a point of clarification. When you say because of turnover, if the turnover didn't happen until, I don't know, 3-4 months ago maybe?
It's October, I think.
Well,
Well, September is when the finance manager went
Yeah.
out, and then the city administrator left. And so the turnover that he's referring to is specifically impacting the finance department.
Okay. So, just a point of clarification, the things were going wayward before the turnover, correct?
I think we had, I guess I'll answer your question by saying that I believe we had the same findings in the 2022 audit.
Okay. Because turnover sometimes is a reason why new stuff doesn't get done, because you hire someone and you're like, oh, we gotta let you know what you do, and it takes a little while for them to pick it up. But turnover doesn't work retroactively. Like, oh, we just, so you're talking about stuff that happened pre-turnover.
I would say that the way I'd answer that again is by saying that a lot of the findings did relate to those things that happened in the past 2022 and 2023. But again, as we look at just the audit years and the cutoff of when those happen, I think there's been significant progress towards the end of 2023. And things are improving, but again, as we look at the audit year and just when things did happen, I think that we do still feel that it was necessary to leave the funding in for the 2023 audit.
Okay.
And if I could make one comment, it's important to note that we closed the 2022 audit at the end of January 2024. And so that the time the flash to bang, all of 2023 had already happened before we were able to close the 2022 audit.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I will move on to number 3, which is titled Timely Bank Reconciliations. Again, I think some of the similar comments I made do apply to this one. Bank reconciliations due to some of the issues with potentially the software turnover, the software conversion, as well as turnover. I did think led to some of the issues with the bank reconciliation. Timeliness, again, this is a carryover from the 22 audit as well. And again, similarly, related to when the time that those things did happen. Again, significant progress has and is being made on that to ensure those hopefully are timely in the future. The next two are kind of small city findings or small staff findings. And again, I'll go over what they are. The lack of segregation of duties. Again, this one is just a limited number of staff touching a number or having the opportunity to touch a number of different transaction cycles within the finance department. Again, although we do recognize there are compensating controls, again, there at certain times of the year, again, with the turnover, there was limited number of people doing the number of transactions or those number of cycles in the finance department, which is why we included that. This year, I believe, different from the past years. The last one is titled Preparation of Financial Statement, which again, we didn't add the significant deficiency bullet to on the presentation, but this one is again, a common finding for a lot of the cities that we do audit. Again, we do prepare the financial statements as the audit firm. We do present that as a risk. Again, we do, understand that there's a review and compensating controls surrounding that, but we do feel, again, with some of the things that happen throughout the year, just the overall review process from 2023's audit, that things could have been missed. We can just recognize that, again, as part of the auditors, we were kind of part of that internal control process in the financial statements. So again, one will consider in future years as well, just the other ones. All right, I will move forward into some of the results. So the general fund balances. Again, we do note that the city's fund balance policy is to maintain a minimum unrestricted fund balance of 35%. So we do show, again, the budget as well as the unassigned fund balance of the general fund. Again, we do compare a year off or offsetting. Again, we do show looking at the reserve percentage as part of the future year's budget. So again, we do see the city's budget in the orange line continuing to go up, again, projected around that 10 million range for 2024. And looking at that unassigned fund balance line, which I think is a pretty solid result, again, really a positive trend, from 39 to 42.5% in 2023. I think with all that's happened, some of the findings we did communicate, I think things are really in good shape, trending in the right direction in the general fund. We note that there is that bullet where we did transfer some of the money to create a new fund in 2022. We did kind of dip things down a little bit there as well. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll just look at 2023's year and look at the general fund budget to actual. So again, on the left, we see the final budget column. The middle column is the actual, and again, the variance is on the right. So again, as we can see here, we do see some variances within the budget of the 2023 year. Again, starting with the revenues, about a $1.6 million positive variance in the revenues. Big reasons for that would be investment income, as well as some of the permit revenue. The biggest one related to some of the grant revenue that was either recognized or earned related to the ARPA dollars, as well as the public safety money that was received. So again, positive results in the revenues. Again, expenditures also had a positive result, which was actually under close to $470,000. Again, the bigger reason for that, as we'll see on a future slide, is looking at some of the public works maintenance as well as some salaries items as well. So the other thing I'll point out is just looking at the transfers. Again, the city did transfer some of those dollars for that ARPA recognition on the public safety or the police salaries to a different fund to be used on capital financing or purchases in future years. And again, as we see, the general fund did have a good year, increasing close to $1.5 million, so a really good year for that fund. All right, so these two are just two bar graphs showing kind of the revenues and expenditures, just broken down in different types, kind of as I already alluded to a little bit earlier. Again, we look for anything that would be trends, and I think it's just helpful to look at in a little different way other than numbers. Again, as we look at these, nothing too significant jumps out on the revenue side, other than, again, I mentioned that under intergovernmental, which was a big increase this year, as well as the licenses and permits, and other, which is the investments. And again, as we look at the expenditures, as I did say, that public works did kind of go down from last year. And again, public safety continues to be a rising cost for a lot of communities in the state of Minnesota. All right, so the next is a different type of fund. Again, these are special revenue funds, again, a little smaller dollar amounts here. The only thing I'll point out here, nothing too significant in the increase or decrease in activity. But again, these resources really are restricted and committed for kind of the name of the fund or the use of those set-aside funds. All right, the next would be capital project funds. Again, we do show the detail of the number of different capital projects funds, as well as the fund balance designation at the bottom. A ton of activity goes into these funds with paying bills, tracking of the developers and things of that nature. Again, I think the positive result here, again, those funds did increase close to $3 million. Again, the biggest in that long-range capital planning fund, we did mention a little bit of that in the transfers out. The only other thing I'll mention, again, most of those major capital project funds are kind of restricted resources, either from developers or I think it would be dedication fees. So again, those are bigger dollar amounts expected to be paid on project costs in the near future. Next would be the debt service funds. Again, I'll just have a point of clarification here, so we may have a question later too. These are the governmental debt service funds, non-enterprise related. So these would be mainly supported by tax levy or other things of that nature. So we do just put this chart together here to show the kind of the final maturity dates of those bonds. The assets that do exist currently, kind of the remaining interest payments. Again, we show the graph as well. Again, we do point out that there is one of the debt service funds that is in deficit, does have a deficit cash balance or borrowing from others. But we do just continue to recommend, I think city's well aware of it, to monitor that debt service fund and review the resources that either were supposed to be collected or that need to be collected in the future to pay those funds. All right, switching gears a little bit, we'll do the two city enterprise funds. I'll explain them real quick. Again, the top one looks at kind of a cash flow from operations. You see the operating receipts and connection fees as a comparison to the disbursements and debt payments. Again, that will be kind of important for the city as it goes forward. Again, it's not getting as many connection fees or growing as much to ensure those rates. And it's still important now. The chart does kind of support the need for future versus today. The second chart does show the overall cash balance as well as a future or a minimum target balance, which is kind of a benchmark we've defined as the following year's debt service plus 50% of operating cost. All right, so the water fund, again, we do like to compare the operating receipts and connection fees to those disbursements and debt payments. And again, moving forward, and currently we would like to see those left bars exceeding those right bars to kind of save for future debt payments or future capital purchases. So again, as we see, I think things are moving in the right direction there. Obviously, there has been a lot of capital activity, and just to note that capital is not reflected in that top chart. The second chart, again, shows sorry, go back one slide. I just want to point out too on this slide that we do look at the overall cash balance. And with the big bond that was issued, again, there is a big cash balance at the end of 2023. Again, a significant portion of that is unspent bond proceeds or to be used on the remaining construction at the end of the year. All right, you can move to the next slide now. Going to the sewer fund, again, we see the two same charts. So this one is a little bit more a little cleaner, I suppose. Again, on this one, a little less debt. But again, as we see a good trend in the right direction for the sewer fund, maybe a little less capital as it currently stands in this fund. But overall, those resources continue to outweigh those expenses. All right, so we talked about a lot of different funds. Again, I'll just close with a cash and investment balance chart. What's in the bank? Stay away from fund balances and things. And again, I think I will just make that caveat, the city does have about that $15 million in unspent proceeds in that right-hand column in those enterprise funds. Taking that away, I think still a good trend in the right direction. the city does have resources for things it needs currently and in the future. All right, I'll close with some key performance indicators. Again, I mentioned at the top that these are class 4 cities under 10,000 population, as well as cities in Hennepin County. Again, the city of Corcoran would be that black line. So the first one is taxes. Again, two completely different ratios here. One is tax rate, one is taxes per capita. Again, the rate would be more market value based, and again, taxes per capita is based on overall number, dollar amount of taxes divided by the number of residents. So again, as we look at the rates, I think, the city of Corcoran does look pretty favorable as compared to those other, class 4 cities with the population wise. And again, I think really in the same ballpark as well as the cities in Hennepin County. Again, taxes per capita, a little on the higher side specifically with those class 4 cities, but kind of in line with the Hennepin County, and again, probably not uncommon for a growing community. Next would be the debt. Again, this one is two separate ratios. We show debt per capita, which again, just looks at overall debt numbers compared to the residents. Again, on the right-hand side, we compare debt service expenditures, just governmental, non-enterprise, as it compares to the overall total expenditures governmental. So a little misleading there. One chart compares, enterprise, one does not. But as we look at the debt per capita, again, with the big bond that was issued in 2023, that did significantly increase that per capita number, on a per resident basis. But again, I think some of the overall governmental debt is still low, or compares really well with other in the peer group. All right, so the last one, we do show our current expenditures per capita as well as capital expenditures per capita. So again, this one kind of just looks at, when we look at current expenditures, or, as we just provide city operations, what on a per capita basis would that be, as well as capital. Again, this one's a little bit up and down for different cities, and as far as the averages as well, but it does kind of tell a story here for sure. But as we look at the current expenditures per capita, again, I think things do look pretty well in line. I think, again, as we look at not having the numbers for 2022, since the OSA has yet to release them, I think things are going to continue to go up with those peer groups. And again, looking at the capital expenditures per capita, obviously the city has a lot going on, a lot of different projects. So on a per resident basis, those expenditures do continue to go up, or have been going up, and are more than other communities in those peer groups. So with that, I've reached the end of my presentation. Is there any other questions?
Any questions? I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck the rest of this year.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, as Justin finishes, I also saw this as a good opportunity for Vicki, who has been providing Abdo Financial Services for us, to just provide a quick update on her perspective, how it relates to the audit, as well as where we're at with some of our benchmark goals that we've had.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you again. Vicki Holthouse with Abdo Financial Solutions. I'm a partner with our team, and I've been on site working with your staff since January. Naturally, based on some of the observations that Justin shared tonight, we had 3 main priorities the last several months, which were working on good processes around bank reconciliations, getting those items caught up and up to date, working on reconciliations related to escrows, how can we improve process and better leverage technology to make those processes easier as we move into the future, and then of course prepping for the 2023 financial audit. So as we move forward, I see kind of our continued role as more coaching, development, and transition of those responsibilities to your team. There's a solid team here that we've been working with really closely over the last few months. And so we'll be working with them to kind of, again, fine-tune those processes, utilizing technology maybe where we can to kind of take out some of that manual work that we perhaps have been doing in the past and automate things. But have just been really impressed with everybody's ability to lean in and kind of hit all of the really aggressive timelines and mile markers we've had along the way. But with that, I would answer any questions that you have for me. Otherwise, it's been a great pleasure working with the team over the last few months, and look forward to kind of coaching and transitioning as we move through the second half of the year.
Any questions?
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
If I could, Mayor and
Yeah.
Council, I just wanted to provide a couple updates for the in terms of the findings, some important things to note that I'm really excited about. So for example, internal controls, I've been fulfilling a role to ensure that in 2024, we maintain our appropriate internal controls. But yesterday we made an offer to an accountant, and I'm soon going to be done with that role, and I'm super excited about that because we will have enough personnel within the finance department in order to have those internal controls, which we haven't had that capacity since September. So I'm excited about that. And then the escrow, the person who's been helping us from escrow actually works remotely from Abdo from Arkansas. And we got to meet her for the first time face-to-face today. She was up for another Abdo meeting, and so we were able to have a discussion with her. And I'm really excited for where we're at. We actually have a really good handle on it. We're only a few steps, and I would say probably a few weeks away from being able to achieve where we wanted to be. Lastly, in terms of bank reconciliations, that's also another thing that I'm going to be able to stop doing, approving, and I'm super excited about that. The reason I bring that up is because we're where we're at because of your support. And so I just wanted to thank you for your support, because without your support, we wouldn't, I can't imagine where we'd be. We're where we're at because you supported us bringing Abdo in for the necessary financial services during this bridging strategy until we could build the team. And now we're at a place in which we're getting the pieces in the right place to be able to have a more promising future. So thank you for your support, and 2024 is going to look a lot better. So.
Thank you for all your hard work on it.
Well, I want to especially
The whole
thank
team.
Jody, the finance department, and she's here. The finance department has been a party of one for a while, and so I just want to thank Jody.
Where is her plaque?
We'll get there.
It's coming.
It's a longevity. She hasn't been here long enough to earn one yet, but we're going to get there.
3 years, in 2 weeks it'll have been 3 years.
Over halfway there.
So thank you, Justin and Vicki.
Thank you. Alrighty, on to consent agenda, which consists of 7A through 7Q. Does anyone want to pull anything?
I don't remember getting a plaque at my fifth year anniversary.
On council? I don't think we get them on council.
Gotta be full pay.
I would like to pull 7F and 7N.
7F and 7N. Okay, anyone else?
I was gonna say 7N also.
Yep, I had that too. Anyone else? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E, G through M, O through Q.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda item 7F. Jeremy.
I think this one merits some conversation. I know there was a survey that was conducted to get some feedback from commissions and from council on the value of the liaison roles in each direction. I felt like this one needs a little bit of debate before we make policy changes. And I'd like to invite Jay to speak to maybe some of the feedback that he's gotten as he's reviewed the survey data to give us a starting point.
So if I could, Mayor and Council, I'd like to split this particular staff report into 3 sections because there's 3 distinct sections for us to talk about. So the first section would be the business hours. You approved a pilot program that we started Memorial Day weekend in which we shifted our hours from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 8 to noon on Fridays. And I was anticipating a significant impact on quality of customer service. We did not see that. We did see some customers, but I didn't see the volume of customers that I thought that we might get. The reality is Fridays are typically very quiet around here. And while we tried to pull post office hours, no one's coming in at 5 p.m. hoping to get their city business done. They're usually coordinating. However, I would say we've gotten a tremendous benefit from how it's impacted staff morale. And so it's provided a flexibility and a predictability that has been much appreciated. in terms of the rigor of doing the work of city work. They have appreciated that work schedule, and consequently, I request that we have your approval to continue this pilot program and make it permanent. So that's the first section. The second section would have to do with...
Can I ask a question on the first?
Sure.
Section?
Yes.
What about Public Works? Do they
So-
have the same schedule or potential movement of schedule, or have we asked them?
So I have talked with Public Works, and we do provide, we try to have some flexibility with them. And I'm looking forward to collaborating for greater flexibility. They have not been operating under the same business hours, and part of that is because they're responding to what's happening. So an
Sure.
example would be Sturbridge. They're out there on Sunday clearing trees off the road because of a crazy storm that we had. And so they don't really work business hours. They come in earlier than we open City Hall, and they depart before City Hall closes. But I agree with you that they should have flexibility in their schedule, whereas the police department will not have that same level of flexibility.
I'm more speaking to the ability in a normal week that at Public Works, obviously whatever happens, happens, but in a normal week with no issue, I feel like that, or I think they ought to be able to leave at noon on Friday also.
Or potentially adjust their schedule if there's not a
14-hour
need to come in
days.
on Friday.
Something like that.
Yep.
So that's the intention.
Okay.
And that's, so right now, there's a lot of employees that are not working on Fridays because they've reached their 40
I see.
hours.
Okay.
But we still have to provide customer service hours. So we are minimally manned or minimally staffed
Sure.
on Fridays.
Same as here.
And even with that, if we have a conflict, to deconflict the conflict, we would post a sign and say due to staffing shortages. I mean, if we don't have someone to work on it, I don't want to pay someone overtime if no customers are actually going to come in. That doesn't make highest and best use of our staff's time or the tax dollars. So any other questions about the?
There's been conversation, and they've thought about it, they're talking about it as far as Public Works and coming back.
Yeah, I met with Public Works
Proposal, good.
last Thursday, and do as part of a strategic planning session, and that's just one of several things that we're talking about that
Cool.
would improve their quality of life here at work. Any other business questions? So the next one that, if there are none, that I would bring up would be, I raised the question of Thursdays, is this the best evening, or potentially Tuesdays? And got in the survey, got some mixed feedback, but what I think is really critical to note is that we have some commissions in which our most experienced and important leaders on those commissions cannot make Tuesdays work. And so for them, it would not work. And then we have some council members that with other obligations, it would not work. So my recommendation at this time would be that we table that discussion until such a time as it may make sense. If it doesn't work and we can't have a quorum of our important leaders, we probably shouldn't be trying to make it happen. So that would be my recommendation on that one. If there's any questions or feedback on that. Then lastly, as far as liaisons, also I received some mixed feedback in the survey. Some folks, and I would note particularly those who are relatively new in their roles, have really appreciated the opportunity through this liaison expectation to gain a better understanding of how government works. I'm not sure after they've served in that role if they'll have that same feedback, but that's their feedback presently. And then others have raised questions on, is this the best and highest use of their time? And then lastly, in terms of feedback, and particularly for council liaisons, is there the potential concern, I've gotten some feedback from some folks, that is this the I'm trying to be very careful how I articulate this. Concerns about a potential perception that a particular individual's perspective shared with a commission might not be the shared perspective of the council. And so that was a concern for both commissions, feedback that I received from different people. So those, I leave that for your discussion. There would be an implication if we stopped liaisons, because it's presently in 2 places in code. And so we would have to consider adjusting code if we did change that. But I guess the question that I would ask of council to discuss is what is the desired outcome of the liaison idea? What do we hope to, why do we have liaisons? And that would be the first question. And then 2, are we getting the outcome that we desire, how liaisons are presently working?
So maybe we should start by just clarifying on the business hour aspect, on the change of the meeting date. Are we on the same page about tabling a potential change of meeting date to a later date, if at all? And business hours change, making that permanent? Good on those 2
As
items?
permanent as things are.
Yes. Yeah. Going forward with it. So then the only really discussion left is on the liaison aspect. And we can really open this up to whoever's got ideas on it. I've kind of went back and forth on this. I think, to me, if we did want to make the change, I'd want to make sure that it's still encouraged to the commissioners, that if they want to come, fantastic, and that they still be, able to step in on a conversation that's about their subject and give feedback, or, basically be handled the exact same way if they wanted to come, if we were to make the change, and did show up. 'Cause certainly not a bad thing if they are interested in doing it. I'd personally be most comfortable with making a change like that once we have all of our upcoming tech improvements up, such as Granicus and Laserfish, when you can even easier get access to documents, minutes, agendas, the video, and just easily kind of scrub through and find the specific docking points so that you can pull it up on an iPad and double check that that's what the commission talked about on this item. But if council feels strongly that we should make a change to it beforehand, I'm open to that as well. So, I'd like to hear you guys' feedback.
Yeah, if I could just add, if I understand some of your comments correctly, the feedback that you're receiving from some of the newer commission members are, I've really learned a lot by being a liaison. But our meetings are open to the public, and they're certainly, they can certainly attend any meeting that they want to voluntarily, right? I mean, so that wouldn't, if we no longer require mandatory attendance, they can still show up if they want and still learn, right? Okay.
Absolutely. And I would almost say if we do make a change, that maybe we find, and maybe it's just an informal way of, if we know in a month we're going to have a very complex, this is just hypothetical, very complex planning thing, or a big decision on city park coming in. If we know a decent amount of time in advance, maybe we make a point to say, hey Jay, can you talk to staff to see if, or Natalie, can you talk to a planning commissioner to see if someone is available to make that next meeting? And then, doesn't necessarily have to be a schedule, but maybe if we know it's gonna be a complex discussion, it might be beneficial if we can get someone, and if we can't, we live with it. But just a way to try to at least get someone there for the ones that they may be the most useful for to have there, which I think is doable. Yeah.
I also filled out the survey, but if I could add.
Could I get you to come to the microphone so everybody
Oh.
catches it?
Okay.
Don't want to be difficult.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. Are we discussing the scope of 2 things? Liaisons attending city council and city council attending commission? Or just
Yeah.
one?
Both.
Okay.
Could you please say your name and address just for the record?
Oh, I didn't know I had to if I was liaison tonight. Okay.
I think technically I've just been lax on.
Okay, oh, okay, 20415 Japanese Circle. I think there's, adding perspective, I think there's a ton of value having council at least planning meetings. Being able to ask questions is incredibly valuable, and I know consistently we have you, Dean, joining us. But the other thing would be, perhaps if we do continue with this, how can we play a more active and valuable role to bring something to you, or to add perspective, or make it more than sitting in the audience in any way if that's valuable. Otherwise, there's the responsibility of catching up and all of those things. I think this is a communication thing, that either we receive summaries of each other's meetings, or we figure out a way to drive that communication without the liaison program, or we figure out a way to make it more valuable time for everybody.
Gotcha. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll just say, if I could just add to that, I think that you had some important comments. I get on YouTube and I watch your meetings after the fact when they're, once they've been posted. So just know, and I'm sure you already know this, just know that those meetings are available.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know if people, would
Yeah.
take the time to do that. That's amazing
Sure.
that you do that, but.
Yeah.
That's really helpful feedback just in terms of an active role. And it might actually get back to what you're talking about, Mayor, in terms of, we have committee, council reports and stuff. Maybe a commissioner actually provides feedback,
Yeah.
just as an idea. And then maybe it's not every meeting. Maybe it,
Well, we tend to have a planning heavy meeting and a non
a less.
less planning heavy meeting. Maybe we try to time it up with that.
We do have meetings occasionally that have planning items, and sometimes that is what we tend to do, is we try to have it on the second meeting of the month, the planning heavy meeting. But for example, August 8th, we're anticipating a plat to go there, not one reviewed by the planning commission, so that they might not have a lot to weigh in on that, but other times there have been examples where something gets put on the 8th,
Yeah.
or the first meeting.
And maybe that's when we
So-
could ask more for, hey, can someone fill in on that?
Sure,
But maybe generally we try to change it to
just.
something like giving a report at that every other meeting, that planning heavy meeting. So it kind of lowers the,
The other items, we don't currently, we can check our policy for Zoom, but a lot of times we have commissioners who are attending over Zoom. Last time I attended over Zoom, I wasn't unmuted, so when I tried to talk, so I think that might be a little.
are we able to control that aspect
I
of it?
believe we can, but I think it's whoever's in the driver's seat has a lot of, they have to be paying attention that someone's requesting to speak, and if they feel uncomfortable, they're not gonna unmute them because if they don't recognize the name for whatever reason. So, I think, especially as when you have a new city clerk, they might be like, nope, I'm not unmuting it if that's the policy. So if they don't recognize the name, so, because as a staff member, I should be able to speak online, but.
Maybe part of that could be resolved in terms of telling them to put a certain
Right,
title,
yeah,
on there.
Yeah, just have to adjust the policy, I think,
Yeah.
just to have it be clear, yeah.
It'll get scanned.
Yeah, all of a sudden, everyone's a commissioner.
Everyone's J Tobin.
Or you could send out an email beforehand and have them put that 2-digit code, their 3-digit code at the end of their name or something like that. Something that
Sure,
we wouldn't say out loud, so whoever's watching wanting to crash the meetings wouldn't know.
Mhm. Yeah.
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 So those are some potential options. Any other thoughts?
I enjoy going. I love listening. The new planning commission we have up here is very, very engaged and such, so I can go, I can stay away, whatever they wish. And really look back at liaisons were added because what I thought was, it seemed as if on the planning commission side, when I was there, comments were made like, we're making recommendation and the council does whatever they want after that. And I'm like, and that's where we're entitled as planning commissioners to go to the council meetings and participate if that's an option. So liaisons, I'd love it when the point comes that the director of planning, the director of parks, those folks are kind of the people that, what do I want to say it, can give input, can give information and such, and let everybody know in the planning commission and the parks that we do. I listen to both. Even though I'm here for the planning commission, I still jump online and re-listen in case I missed something or misunderstood. And on the park side, listen to that just because of where we sit. We've got to make some good calls, and we've got some really cool volunteers helping us out. So I'm, either way, the thing that I'd like to do is, would love it if somebody else could take the planning side. I've been on it now
Okay.
2.5 years. I've shared with Alan there for a year, but if somebody's interested, be happy to let somebody else go to planning.
Which is what, second?
Or if I'm welcome, I can
Thursday.
keep coming. First
It's first Thursday.
First Thursday, yeah,
first
sorry.
Thursday of every month.
Uh,
I'm open.
It falls squarely in the category of I should talk to my wife first.
Wise man.
Yeah. But potentially at least maybe I could split duties.
No, and again, I can keep coming and such. My issue is Thursdays are my work day. I get out of
Gotcha.
my job at 6:20 to 6:30 in the evening down in
It's a long day.
Bloomington. I'm rushing to get here. I don't want to be late for these. I don't want to be late. I don't want to show any disrespect to any commission or any meeting I'm going to. I always want to be early or on time, so that's me, so.
Gotcha.
If I could just add one final comment. We get a lot of benefit from our volunteers. And my concern is I don't want to burn them out by mandating attendance
Yeah.
to listen to us talk about, storm drainage. We've been here plenty of times until 11 o'clock at night, and I've looked out at a commission representative, and I can just hear the representative thinking, gosh, I wish I was at home with my kids.
Right.
So I just don't want it to be, my recommendation is that attendance should be voluntary and not mandated.
Okay.
I think the same.
Okay.
And whatever is added, I think a lot of it gets subtracted from, for me, too much time gets subtracted from home time for
Gotcha.
both us and commission.
Gotcha. So when you say making it voluntary, still on board with maybe like what I was saying earlier, encouraging if they want to come and potentially implementing some sort of like report that they bring to council, and maybe when they are coming, it could even be more limited to just the meetings that big planning meetings, and or when we think there's something odd coming up on an agenda that's not lining up with that normal planning schedule, or parks.
I was sympathetic to staff's recommendation that staff provide the direct feedback from the commission most of the time. But I would like to get more contact between council and commission. What about a quarterly update where the commission talks about the general themes of the quarter, any input they have from the recent past, but it's not a tactical discussion around specific projects or requests? It's more of a strategic view of how the park system is developing or not developing, or how planning in general is being handled by the city, or issues with development are being handled by the city.
Could I make a recommendation
Please do.
with that? A potential consideration, I know the council is reluctant, but then you're getting from one person. I also hear in that kind of getting to know who else we're collaborating with. We do work sessions, And is a work session that opportunity in order to get that collaborative feedback, as well as potentially focus on a particular work project? So for example, we had a work session in which the council met with the Parks and Trails Commission to discuss park standards, as well as the master planning of the park. That seems like a pretty important face-to-face conversation. And there's similar things happening with code for the planning commission. And so those might be the really good opportunities to get that strategic connection and perspective at a work session rather than just an agenda item. But I also am sensitive to the fact that, you know, work sessions mean more time, means being here earlier. So that's just
One other thing before I forget it, kind of touching on, you're talking about, you know, the amount of time it can be, which can be a lot, especially when we're here late in some meetings. Does it help if we make a point that, and maybe even try to recognize it in the meeting, that, you know, we have an 11 o'clocker coming and planning's done at 9:20 that we mentioned, hey, or, you know, whoever here for planning can leave if they'd like or stay if they'd like, but they're probably the topics that they're gonna be there to weigh in on are probably over. So that way they don't have to feel pressure to stay through the whole meeting, if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure, that should be just a courtesy
Yeah.
on your part to dismiss people. I don't think we need council action, I think you can do that.
We'll make a note of it.
One other thing I would add is, I think having a council person, being a liaison, what's the word, you say it so well?
Liaison?
A collaborator.
Yeah, so the undue influence would be a concern of mine.
Okay.
Our role should absolutely mostly to be non-participants in the conversation. And I don't know if you guys do that or not, but it would just generally be a concern that how involved they are in the meeting. They should, I would want to make sure that they're not actually involved with the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an important consideration, because if I attend a planning commission meeting, you know, should I really share if I like an application or not? I don't think that would be appropriate to share my, you know, my interpretation of an application at a planning commission meeting. They're independent, and they make recommendations to city council. And I'm just concerned that if I were to attend a meeting and if they ask me a question and I give them an honest answer, I may have influence over their deliberations and their recommendations. So I think that if council members do liaison with the, you know, especially with the planning commission, maybe we should just be really careful in, you know, just kind of being really careful in our comments.
Gotcha. Thoughts on that from, like, John, that's along the same lines of what you were saying, yeah.
I think to a degree, if what I've tried to do in parks is not guide the conversation or dictate, but more give them things to discuss and determine if course X makes sense. Do they want to talk about an alternate route? Do they not want to talk about an alternate route for a trail, for example? And I don't know if you don't have the council member free to prompt in that way. I agree about not guiding toward a particular outcome or sharing an opinion. But if you're not engaged at any level in the conversation, I wouldn't see the value in having a liaison present.
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't think we need it. They should be independent decision-making bodies.
And what was your take on the value of the liaison to the commissions?
I think that if, you know, in the situation where there's no liaison, I think it's, I don't know, and only from my perspective, but it's helpful to know that we're being heard by council. Okay, so in the instance that you're not there, I think that's fine, but we need to understand or guarantee, not guarantee, but provide some sort of confidence that the communication is happening. In the stances, the challenges, like the quarterly report, I see totally what you're getting at, Counselor Nichols. So I think in that instance, the thing to solve for would be how do we bubble up what's happening and make sure council receives it. And then we have the opportunity, the other piece is, there's rarely a meeting that goes by where we don't ask questions to Counselor Camp or whoever is there. So
And I
that
hope,
would be the other.
and I hope I try to,
Yeah, and you do, and you do,
to
and it's
be
always at the end
as
of the meeting.
neutral as possible in everything.
You
and-
always
and-
are.
Okay,
It's
good.
always at the end, and it's about council, it's about whatever we see is happening in the city, it might be about recent events, whatever it is. But that's a great opportunity for us to ask questions, so then we need to solve for that too. But so that's what the value is for us or me. I can't speak on behalf of everyone else.
If I could make two comments, that the previous cities that I've worked in, that connection role in terms of being clearly communicating to the council what the commission is trying to communicate and ensuring that the commission understands where the council's at, that role has been a staff responsibility in the last two cities that I've worked in. But I also can recognize how, particularly in a city of our size, that collaborative partnership and relationship is valued. So that's, and in that spirit, I would ask Natalie to read, we have an online commissioner that left a note, and so I would just ask her to read their comments since they're not present, but it's another helpful perspective of a commissioner who's attending this meeting, if I may.
So Commissioner Schmidt says, as a newer commissioner, I find the liaison role useful to keep the teams connected and appreciating the process. I agree with the speaker present that if there was a summary report out to align all the cross-functional parties, it would be more useful. This would help alleviate the requirement of an individual to join and standardize the messages being shared across the teams. Thanks.
Gotcha, thank you. So, with those comments, does that lead us anywhere on, I'm hesitant to fully erase it. I'm open, I think, to the tweaks. I guess my preference would be to maybe look at some of these tweaks now, try to improve the process, eliminate some of our concerns about eliminate some of the time, the excess time commitment, and see if that accomplishes what we're going for, and if not, then maybe we have to have this discussion again about further taking steps to either to completely overhaul or remove the program, or change it to a staff position or something like that.
Well, I did like your proposal. If there is something, significant, let's say there's a significant development application that's coming in front of the Planning Commission, I think it's very reasonable to ask for, can someone attend?
Right.
So I would have no issue with that. I'm just concerned when, if there's a meeting and there isn't, a significant application being considered, but there's a lot of stuff on the agenda. Do we really need someone, attending one of our meetings to hear about stormwater management?
I would say no unless they want to.
Unless they want to,
Yeah.
right?
So it seems like a one-way change might make sense, where you make the liaison to the council at will, not a requirement of being on a commission. And maybe we think about over the next 3 to 6 months, does it make sense to phase out? I mean, it's something for the new council to decide. Do we want to have a liaison from the council to the commissions?
I heard a.
So one thing that I'd say, that the challenge in the proposal that Councilmember Lanterman suggests in terms of identifying particular items, in my short time here, it's not always predictable what items are going to generate discussion, or you're going to desire additional perspective. And so sometimes you might think that this is going to stay on consent, and then it's not for an unforeseen reason, and it generates greater discussion or raises greater questions.
I
That's
think
hard
it's
to
the other
forecast.
direction. As I heard Councilor Lanterman, I think you were talking about if council is aware of an item that will go to planning commission the next month, council might say, Dean, would you be willing to attend because this
Oh,
is a,
okay.
you know,
I
88
misunderstood.
thing.
Thank you for clarifying.
Exactly, thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. I did misunderstand.
Maybe you
So-
still have concerns about that, but it sounds like it might be a different concern.
And then the last thing that I'd say that probably for staff, it might be helpful, the consideration of the value that I have heard from our new commissioners, to include that in terms of part of the train-up for new commissioners, that we highly encourage them to attend a council meeting. And it might actually be beneficial if we have more than one commissioner on the same commission that are new, to go together and for them to chat about what lessons learned. I didn't know that. I didn't foresee that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be an easy tweak for us to include that as part of our commissioner training.
So I think that change, the kind of one-way change you were talking about, maybe reassessing the second part, I could support that for now, and then review it in the new year or later in the year for the other part if we think there's still an issue.
Well, and I did like the recommendation of the quarterly, maybe,
Yeah.
quarterly, you know, update or status update meeting.
And maybe if we're concerned about only getting one perspective, maybe we select the chair of that commission, who's responsible for harmonizing the feedback of the commission to present. And I like the idea of it being an agenda item that's, you know,
At
10
their
to 15
meeting.
minutes
Yeah,
versus an hour and a half of work session for everybody. I think it'll be easier
Right.
on everybody's schedule.
but I was talking about even when they're creating that report, that would be an agenda item for them, and then maybe their chair
Oh,
or
sure.
whoever comes presents it to us in a 15-minute type thing,
I like that. I didn't catch that. That makes sense.
but if that makes sense.
So just to clarify, right now we do an annual report of the planning activity that we've covered and goals that we'd like to discuss as a commission. So we would want that done on a quarterly basis because staff.
It wouldn't need to
prepares
be
that
the same
report.
scale,
Okay.
just a smaller, like Jeremy said, 10-minute quarterly, 15-minute quarterly report. Hopefully it's stuff that then at the end of the year could be folded in and just a lot of copy and paste into, and then added onto for the year report.
You could potentially think about getting rid of the annual and just making it
Yeah.
a quarterly.
I like that idea.
Smaller bites, more regular.
I'd be fine with that.
The advantage of the annual report is it's the same time that the commissions are working on their strategic objectives to bring to council for how to help with the goals and measurables for the next year.
Does that become a specific request of the fourth quarter report?
That's a really interesting proposal. So actually have them come and report in the fourth quarter what they'd like to happen for the next year.
We've had that happen
It's a timing.
before you guys were on the council.
Okay.
So it just becomes a different timing issue from when we do
So,
certain objectives.
so what difference are we talking when we get a planning project update every month? I'd rather not add more to staff. We're already getting a planning
This would be from the commission.
update from the commission, from staff, as far as the commission. Planning commission, planning
Yeah.
project update,
So I
and
think
it's
that's
5
where I'm
pages now.
struggling, is the annual report, usually we draft it, and then it goes to planning commission for them to, like, take a
Review.
look at it, make sure it's what they want to say, add anything, it's a chance for us to go over goals and priorities, and then that gets approved to then go to council. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how that would work on a 3-month rotation exactly. So I don't know.
Especially with present workload, it's
Yeah.
hard to achieve the objectives that
I
have
was
been
thinking
laid out already.
it could be something as simple as a list of the projects they're working on, summary, like bullet points of if there was potential sticking points or questions they had about how code things or things they'd like to look into further because this code issue came up on this project, led to discussion, we'd like to look into changing this code, or at least reviewing what this actually means, or what the impact is of this, or what alternatives to this if there are. Miscellaneous things like that. It doesn't have to be anything too in-depth, I don't think, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as being the same content as we get in the specific project summary. I think the value is more in,
Keeping the communication going.
yeah,
But it would still be prepared by staff, just to be clear, like and then the commission presents it, or we're saying the commission would draft it? I guess I'm a little confused on that, because if we're talking about, we want the commission's perspective. We would, for example, for a quarterly report in March, we basically would have to have that report drafted in February to get the commission to make sure that it incorporates everything they want to say. I think the 3-month rotation is where I'm struggling in terms of being able to whip that out.
what I was envisioning when I proposed it was not staff preparing something. It was the commission talking about what they've learned and the questions they've had over the previous 3 months, whatever the projects were, and if there are changes they would like to suggest to council or issues that they feel we haven't addressed that we said that we would, it's a chance to touch base rather than drive for a new strategic objective or add to a measurable or review a specific item. It's really more about the conversation between the bodies and how we feel we're working together and how the code is serving the vision.
Yeah, really how I would do it as staff or as a commissioner would be to just, on an iPad or on a piece of paper, write these notes as you're going through your meetings, and then when it comes to the time for the report, put that all together, put it on a single document, and have someone come present that to council.
We need to adjourn real quick. Zoom got shut down. If we could just pause real quick.
Okay, we will,
Not adjourn, recess.
yep, recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No problem. All right, call the meeting back to order. And we'll continue with our discussion. We're in the middle of 7F, the remaining item on the liaison. And we're discussing the potential quarterly reports.
And so what I came away understanding, Mayor, is you really see this as a connection opportunity, more so than a data exchange opportunity. So staff will continue to do the monthly report that we're doing, and providing that information. And then a commissioner would come to a council meeting quarterly in order to try and just get some feedback from you on potentially some priorities or validating what they're doing, and then also an opportunity for them to ask some questions, some validated question, and report on progress. So I'm taking away that it's an informal. So as far as, I guess one of the concerns that I heard with Natalie is with that commission in particular, the planning commission, they have so much on their plate, to add something else to the plate would be a concern. If it's to come back and provide information that council is already getting. But what I heard instead is that it's an opportunity to connect relationally and ensure that some of the things that Lindsay was talking about are happening.
I think we're very open to it being whatever they think is valuable to bring up.
So flex.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
So are we all,
And maybe like, what would be valuable for you to hear from?
and I think we'll get a better handle of that as we start to get in some of
Yeah.
these.
It might change.
Yeah, it almost certainly will.
Yeah.
Probably should.
So, yeah, and then I guess beyond, maybe if that's the change we're making, beyond that it's encouraged, but certainly not mandatory to come to the council meetings other than that, and with the exception of maybe if we know we have a large item that we try to ask and get someone there ahead of time.
That was the other direction. That was council going to commission for major items, was the context of that earlier point.
Oh.
I thought it was your way too, Tom.
I thought it was my way too.
Yeah, that's why I asked a clarifying question and I was corrected.
but it could be both.
So,
But
so
I think we settled the other.
The way that I've seen the commission liaisons typically work, it's fairly rare that someone speaks up on a topic during a council meeting. So unless we envision directly asking for that person to speak, I don't know that just by having them attend, we're gonna generate any different dialogue than we get today.
Yeah, I think the only, you're talking about like if we were to ask them to come
Yeah.
on a specific case. I think the only time we would do that is if we looked at an item and it was the most complex development project that we've had that we know we're gonna need, maybe we've watched their meetings on it and there's a lot of questions we have. It'd be a very specific case by case basis, probably to not use a whole bunch.
Okay. That makes
But-
sense to me.
sort of like a phone a friend.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. So,
Lifeline.
does that work for everyone then, for kind of all of those changes for now, and then we can kind of reassess some other things down the road if we want?
So to recap, so I understand, Mayor, council liaison at this point will not change. The commission liaison will no longer be mandatory, but at will, encouraged to attend. Will instead go to a quarterly update. At this point, it would be the chair commissioners, or if they are unable to attend, an intentional appointed person, in order to maintain the continuity with council.
Very good.
Works. Perfect. Do we need a motion for that, or are you good with consensus on that?
John, do we need a motion?
I think because you're
The other
you're
aspects.
going with the hours and the other thing,
Yeah.
you take the motion for all of it, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve those changes in policy as amended as we have just discussed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
Can I have a point of order question?
sure.
Not related. In our packet, it said that Matt was gonna get recognized for 10 years.
That was he will be, when he's been here 10 years. In
Just like
December.
next, or yeah, it's in a couple months.
Technicality.
December. I did ask Amy this evening, since, can we count on him being here till December? She reassured me that we'll be able to schedule that, so.
But just to show proof, I did have my list of
Oh.
2014 facts in here somewhere too.
All right.
They weren't as good as the 94 facts, but
Somebody probably communicated that it was done in error, but I was in my car.
oh no, it just I think came up like yesterday that
Oh, okay.
we realized it was a couple months away.
All right.
Thanks.
We didn't want to miss anyone, and in our zeal to recognize everyone, we were a little premature.
Gotcha. On to the other pulled item, which was 7N, and I think a few of us pulled it, so who wants to take it?
Jeremy pulled it.
Jeremy?
I did pull it. I think it would be better to have that conversation after we get a little additional data to help us select appropriate cities. So I would propose that we defer this item to a future meeting when staff can prepare a little bit more data for us.
Is there something specific?
Could I ask for one adjustment, Councilmember? Sure. So we are moving, trying to move ahead with our comp and class study. And that's one of the impacted reasons why we're asking for this. In the staff report, I said that I was trying to get that data. I have not received that yet. That's why I wasn't able to share that with you on those other cities. And if you recall, there were 7 cities that that we have historically used as comparables. So I would request that council consider that in order to not stop the process, we use those 7 comparables. And as soon as I have the additional data for you to consider the others to add, we're talking about adding up to 3 other cities. And I think I gave you 8 to consider. Once I have that data, I'll get that to you as soon as possible. It might be as soon as the next council meeting, but in case it's not, if we could go with the 7 that we have used historically to not delay the process, that would be my request.
I'm good with that.
Can we comment on
Yeah.
the cities
Sure.
tonight?
Sure.
'Cause like, well, the classifications of sub 10,000, I think was relevant when they had those. So the one that sticks out for me is Wayzata. I work in Wayzata, and it's a fine town. I've worked there for 30 years, but I think I want to say, I wouldn't want my service delivery standards in Corcoran to be held to some Wayzata standard, because that means, that rings to me like expensive and needy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but, and then even in Maple Grove, I think when we compare I think it's normal for a smaller city to have smaller expectations of experience. We've had some of our police officers go from here to bigger cities. I just think we want to have it be something similar in demographics, population, and then also geographical location too, which these are geographical next to us. But I think St. Michael compares better with us than Wayzata. This is I think also like, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
The benchmarks, as I understand, from what I could find that were established, and I don't know when we adopted those. They were used in terms of comparison on our staffing. And so
Years ago.
I know Mr. Gamak was using that for a significant period of time. So at that time, I believe it was population, and in terms of the budget revenues, expenditures, and then to Councilmember Bottoma's point, geography. Proximity to Minneapolis actually was one of the variables. And I'm not stating that those are the necessary variables. I'm saying that for right now, if we could keep those 7 so we can move forward. And then if there's others that we should consider, you'd like us to consider, please let me know. Let's add those because we're still waiting to get that data so we could add those. If there's some that you absolutely don't want us to consider, then let's not waste our time and let's remove those. But if you have variables in the equation, so where we get our data, it comes from a League of Minnesota Cities. They collect data from all the cities. And so there's some things that might be really interesting for us to compare to that are very difficult, if not impossible, for us as staff to gather all of the data from all of the cities to do comparison. So right now we use a database provided by League of Minnesota Cities to do comparison. So we're limited in some of the data points based on what they collect. But there are some considerations that we as staff had. So this recommendation, for example, for some of the cities added, use a similar philosophy for police department because some of our comparables don't have a public safety department. And there's implications there for us both in terms of staffing, budget, philosophy of service. And then, for example, if you compare some of our cities, they don't have the same standards. They may have a similar police department, but they don't have they're not the safest city in Minnesota. And that's one of our expectations for service delivery. So if we're wanting to compare to cities, we probably want to look at cities that have that high level of standard in terms of public safety, rather than looking at a city that has a pretty high crime rate, but a really low tax rate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think population growth rate might also be an important parameter to consider. A fast-growing city will have more stress on it than a lower growth city.
I can tell you right now, the only city comparable right now in Minnesota to growth rate is Dayton.
Yeah, there's only.
It's Dayton, Corcoran, Big Gap, Tier 2.
I would also think how much of your tax base is residential versus commercial and industrial could be an important variable to consider as well for per capita taxes. And to the degree that we can get it, staff count and the rate at which staff count is changing in those cities.
So this is for the follow-up.
Yeah.
And I would comment also that, you know, the data that the league and the sources have, because our growth is so fast, that there is it's hard to find you know, we know what we believe our population to be, but because we grow so quickly year over year, that, you know, many of these cities, you know, we actually are, you know, might be at 1,500 more people than what the data points at the league reporting was. If their number is from last year, we're growing by 1,200 people a year, which is, you know, pretty significant.
It's a big percentage.
Yeah, so they have us at 7,158, and as of December, we're 8,019. And there's a lag on that. So,
That was actually like April 2023 by the Met Council.
Yeah,
So there's a disconnect between the league and the Met
Yeah.
projections.
I asked ChatGPT this once and then followed up with staff, and I think that actually got the closest number to what we think is accurate, which was about, at the time, 8350 or something like that, so.
yeah,
Kinda
so,
scary, but kinda cool.
so the highest number I've heard is 8,643.
Then what do we need the Met Council for?
Well, there's an excellent question, Councilmember.
Thank you.
You won't hear me fight against that.
We need them to make sure that our toilets flush.
I know good plumbers.
I'm good.
So I've
Tax
added
have been
population
pumped
growth
last
rate, tax base, staff size. Are there any other data points that you would like us to potentially consider or explore, or any other cities you'd like us to add, or any on this list that you have in front of you that you'd like us to remove?
From the consider list or from?
Yeah, from the consider list. Or if you would like us to, going forward, to not have a city that's on the confirmed list. So I hear Councilmember Bottom is
There's
concerned
potentially
about
the one with Wayzata.
Wayzata. Is comparable.
I guess maybe if you
don't
feel
need-
strongly about it, should we replace it with St. Michael?
You know what, if this is the report that they're already running, and it's just a data point, it's not as if you can't just ignore it.
Yeah.
So I don't need
Okay.
a revamp of procedure, cause I happen to not think Corcoran's that much like Wayzata.
Sounds good.
Spent a lot of time in both.
Yeah. Fair enough. Sounds good. So yeah, I think those data points, we get those back at some point, whether it's next meeting or wherever. And maybe I made a note, that St. Michael, in John's opinion, might be a good fit. And from what I'm familiar with the city, I would agree. I think that there's a lot of comparable aspects. And then hopefully that data will help us find consensus to get 2 or 3 of those on there. Perfect.
Thank you
So
for your feedback.
don't think we need a motion.
Not for that
on
one, just discussion.
Sounds good. Then we will move on to planning business. We have just one item, and it's continued on from a few meetings ago, and that is the Chastic Farms application. Natalie, do you have anything?
I do have a presentation if council would like. It's just going over the changes made to the application. I don't have to get into a great detail of the proposed benefits and summaries, but I do have a couple slides on there just going over that. So.
Okay. Council want to hear the brief presentation on the changes?
Yes.
Since the last meeting? Okay. Let's do that.
Please.
Oh, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
I apologize. Control, save. All right, there you go. Okay, so go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, this is a continuation from an application reviewed by the council at the end of June, and it's for the Chastic property located at 7600 Maple Hill Road. Right now, the proposal has been revised to 112 single-family residential lots with 7 outlots. And a major component is that off-road trail, providing a continuous experience from this property down to Bass Lake Crossing through what will be Fairway Shores, Cook Lake, down to the Bass Lake Estates. Next slide. As far as the major revisions, the revised plan is on the screen here. 4 lots and a private drive were removed in the northwest corner, and the area was replaced with 1 larger lot of about 20,000 square feet, and as well as 1 more acre of open space was added. In this open space, they are proposing a gazebo or covered shelter with a rural architectural theme. There, I have some examples on the next slide to go into that a bit more. The private open space and gazebo are proposed to be made available to the public, which would be subject to a private-public agreement. Did reach out to at least one city so far that has a template that would be something that could be handled as part of the final plat, final PUD.
Could I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt, I know you're on a roll here, but, so if I want to go there, I don't live there, I have to sign some agreement?
No, this is an agreement with the city. So
Oh,
we would
okay.
outline the responsibilities in a separate private agreement that we would arrange. So there are a couple of examples. If you've ever been to Viking Lakes in Egan, they have several spaces in that development that are private open space, but they are available to the public most of the time. They still have some ability to activate that space for a private event, but there is an agreement with the city that's quite detailed. And I do have a copy of that to use as a template, and it's been very successful.
Great.
So there would be, there'd be something that could be finalized as part of the final PUD if that were to move forward.
Thank you.
So the, one of the things that they changed in their flexibility request based on the feedback received by council was a reduced application for the 3-car garage, 60% maximum. So it would only now apply up to 17 lots, about 15% of the development is what they're requesting. And there's some additional caveats, additional design features that they would provide on those lots in return. So I'll get into that a bit more on a subsequent slide. So this is just a zoom in of where the open space is located. Depending on which way you're going on the trail, it would either be located at the end or the beginning of the trail. But the gazebo or covered shelter is located very close to the trail to provide both a visual visual experience, as well as a nearby enhancement for the trail experience. So the gazebo examples they've provided, again, were based on some feedback during the meeting that there was a desire to incorporate rural architecture such as a silo. They are open to something that's more classic as well, but they heard silo and staff heard silo, so here's your silo. And it's definitely something though that could be subject to, we could have something more classical such as what's in our garden behind City Hall with a cupola or a weather vane as well. So that's definitely open for discussion. These are just examples. Next slide. So again, just kind of running through real quickly the PUD components. Open space, they need 12% open space for the lot width they're requesting. And that results to about 4.03 acres that is required. The area outside of the floodplain has been confirmed at 5.48 acres of open space, which is about 16%, so they are over the 12%. The requested flexibilities are the 25-foot rear setback, except for a 20-foot rear setback on lots 28 and 87. 20 lots would have to have flexibility where the width is measured, and one lot, the new lot, or not the new lot, but the new big lot of 20,000 square feet would also have to have some flexibility in where the lot width is measured. It starts out really narrow to work with the trail easement in that location, but then it becomes very large to a lot width of about 140 feet at the maximum point. And then the 60% maximum garage frontage instead of 55%, which is our standard. Again, only 17 lots would be able to qualify for this, and in exchange, those lots would have to have at least one of the following features: a garage frontage extending no more than 3 feet from the front door. The garage doors must be wood in appearance with architectural details such as windows, handles, hinges, or the front facade shall include stone or LP siding, so again, increased architectural standard. Next slide. So I'll try to briefly summarize the proposed public benefits. We have improving the existing public street network in this area, which will require significant capital investment, but will be a benefit to the existing residents, including Maple Hill and Bass Lake Estates, as well as future development in the area. Higher architectural standards, 12 styles of different elevation facades were submitted. The city PUD ordinance requires 5. A minimum setback of 85 feet from Maple Hill Road. Significant collaboration with adjoining landowners. including beneficial street connections and stormwater management for the incoming development that was approved to the east for Fairway Shores, and incorporating feedback from residents from Maple Hill Estates as well as Bass Lake Crossing. Lot size variety, more than half the lots exceed 7,500 square feet. Extensive internal landscaping, nearly 200% of the required overstory trees are proposed, and nearly 300% of the required amount of understory trees are proposed. Use of native plants in landscaping, a large majority of the overstory coniferous trees are native species we have listed in our preferred trees list for the Northeast District Plan and Design Guidelines. Same with use of preferred trees in landscaping, all but one of their tree species, and it wasn't very many trees that are proposed with this species, are from the preferred tree list. 100% of the lots are within a quarter mile of a neighborhood focal point with the greenway that's proposed. The visual termini at the end of the trail with the proposed gazebo. Next slide. The open space is usable and meets the following open space features that are outlined in our PUD public benefit policy. Accessible to the local population of the neighborhood. The open space is a framing and organizing feature. Open space is designed to not appear as someone's backyard through the use of different species of ground cover. Stormwater management is incorporated as a design feature, and the open space will be made available to the public. Open space is connected, so where it's not consolidated through a combination of natural corridors, sidewalks, and trails, the open space is connected. And then the areas of the open space are above the minimum requirement per the PUD ordinance based on lot width. Next slide. So Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of the ordinance to rezone to a PUD, which requires a 4/5 majority of the council. Summary ordinance would also require a 4/5 majority. We have the resolution with findings of fact for rezoning. The resolution approving preliminary PUD development plan. That is the meat of the approvals in front of you tonight. If there's changes you want to make to the standards that are proposed, that is that's the resolution we would be referring to. And then resolution 2024-74 approves the preliminary plat. If the council finds the application does not meet the standards for PUD approval, an alternative resolution 2024-72 was provided in the packet for denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to start us on discussion? Any thoughts on, I guess in particular, the changes, if that has?
I have a question if we go back
Yeah.
2 slides. If we go to the proposed public benefit, as I understand it, there is a public benefit component of the PUD approval that is above what would be under a normal application process.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, use of native plants in landscaping. We have a list of trees that people would use in a non-PUD situation, right? They couldn't.
Not in this district. So as part of the PUD public benefit policy we established to try to encourage wide use of the Northeast District standards, this was identified as a potential public benefit for developments in this district, the Southeast District. So that's why it's a benefit here. If this development was in the Northeast District, you're correct that they would be expected to comply under a standard plat.
Yeah, and then, and just to get some clarification, there's something about the storm, they would have to have stormwater management systems regardless of whether it was PUD or code.
Correct. So the open space, when I was talking about stormwater, is how incorporating stormwater management as a design feature rather than just kind of this stagnant pond of water that's dirt half the year. What they're proposing is that hydraulic greenway corridor, which would include
No, go back one
wildflowers.
page. No, I'm talking about this one, collaboration with adjoining landowners, including.
Oh,
beneficial-
no, so they
and
have gone
stormwater
above and
management.
beyond with the stormwater management to help Fairway Shores. Fairway Shores is going to be a very difficult site. If this development doesn't get approved, they will have to completely redesign their stormwater for Fairway Shores. And there are some challenges with that.
So that's a benefit for Fairway Shores more than for the public.
But it is, but again, we've identified collaboration with adjoining landowners as a public benefit in our policy. to try to encourage better development. And this goes above and beyond what you would typically see with a standard plat.
Okay.
How so? Can you?
They don't need to collaborate with the adjoining.
No, I know, but
yeah.
what is the proposal in terms of the stormwater?
Maybe
That's
Kevin,
probably
or
more
not Kevin,
engineering.
Steve.
So because the two developments abut one another, they're putting in the stormwater system that actually shared between the two developments. And there's a wetland in that corner. And so with the fairway shores alone, they have some challenges with making sure the wetland stays, enough water gets to it. And so they're routing it through their pond into the wetland to make sure it stays kind of in an adequate condition, so.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments?
We're in our discussion now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have some comments. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to address the proposed Chestnut Farms development plan. I have serious concerns about the adequacy of the current design, specifically the reliance on a single entrance and exit for a development of this size. The safety and well-being of our residents are paramount. Based on my 32 years of public safety experience and common sense, I believe multiple access points are essential in residential areas of this size to ensure rapid and unobstructed access for emergency vehicles. A single entry and exit can significantly impede emergency response times, which is critical in emergencies such as fires or medical situations. Moreover, efficient evacuation routes are crucial for the safety of residents. A single exit can create bottlenecks during emergencies, delaying evacuation and increasing risk. For a development of over 100 homes, it is not just advisable, but necessary to have multiple access points to ensure safety and smooth traffic flow. In my opinion, the development plan should include exits at both the southwest and northwest corners. Additionally, this would require improvements to the to the road along the western property line. This adjustment would provide better access for emergency vehicles and more efficient evacuation routes for residents. Given these concerns, I recommend denying the current application unless it includes provisions for exits at both the northwest and southwest corners of the development. The benefits proposed by the applicant do not justify the potential safety risks associated with limited access points. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on council have any follow-ups to that? Otherwise, I was gonna ask staff for some clarification on, where are the, can we pull up a map of, so Mark, you were talking,
These are pointing.
Are you asking me what I would support?
you had mentioned northwest, southwest, I believe.
Yeah, so southwest corner, northwest corner. And then an improved roadway, obviously, between the two to service the northernmost entrance.
The entrance is currently right here about midway.
Yep.
You're saying 2 more entrances onto Maple Hill?
No, I'm saying a total of 2.
Total of 2.
So what I would support, because I don't think that one is sufficient, I don't think that we need 3. I think that we need at least 2. So I think, in my opinion, at a minimum, remove the entrance as it is shown there centrally, and add entrances at the northwest and southwest corners.
So, just so that you're aware, we do have this master plan for the southeast district area. Well, potentially there could be some alignment in the southwest corner and redesigning the central entrance down to that southwest corner. That northeast corner would create a conflict with the intended street network in that area. So there's also engineering, there's connector spacing that we're considering when we locate an entrance for a development. as well as the future road network that we're planning for. So the one entrance here was offset by two entrances, or two exits and entrances here to provide flow. That was approved by the public, that was approved as part of the public safety memo. They said that the first plan that they saw was missing this access point. So the memo was clarifying that two were needed for both this property and the development to the east to be able to function and have proper circulation. And those entrances are now provided. As far as adding another entrance, I would like to get engineering's thought on how that works with the proposed street network. But I think that would be something to weigh off with the city is, do we want another entrance instead of the open space and gazebo and trail feature? So.
Yeah, thank you, and that doesn't change my opinion, but thank you.
But just to be clear, you would be okay with less open space in the gazebo in terms to get the additional entrance?
Yeah, I think the safety of our residents outweighs a gazebo.
Any thoughts from the rest of council on that or other items?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
that's my biggest thing right now, is just that one entrance. While I appreciate and understand the Fairway Shores collaboration and everything else, it just seems to be constricted there. Construction traffic is gonna go in and out there. A lot of construction traffic is gonna go through an existing neighborhood, and we've heard from that neighborhood saying, so be it. But I agree with how Councilor Landerman said it, not only public safety and stuff, but just general access for construction and general flow of traffic. It just seems we've got the same kind of issue, so to speak, up in Bellwether, where we had one entrance. And at some point, it's gonna elaborate out to 4 or 5 different entrances as things develop around. There's not much that's gonna develop around this. And I don't understand how we can say yes to this without having at least one more entrance. And as quick as the way the gazebo came and those houses went away up on the north side, why can't that be another entrance?
Jeremy?
Does the southeast connection get made even if Fairway Shores doesn't proceed?
So if Fairway Shores doesn't proceed, I believe the applicant's intent would be to still secure easement so they can make that connection now. Because they agree that they need to have the 2 access points and they prefer to have that second access point come from there rather than trying to force an emergency access up in the northwest corner, northwest corner, which is the alternative identified by staff. Theoretically, I don't know, we haven't looked at adding an access in that southwest corner. And again, public safety, when they reviewed this, their concern was making sure we had a connection point in the northeast corner, which we now have. So yeah, that's the public safety recommendation.
If Fairway Shores doesn't happen,
Yeah.
that's a connection to nothing.
That northeast was, that was a holistic regional connection, which would have
Right.
included the southeast connection as well. With the added top one was for internal circulation within,
Between the 2.
between the two, because you can mitigate unpassable roadways, or as you have more circulation within. So the east connections, the north and south, were, as she said, it was looked at with Fairway Shores in conjunction as you zoom out, and it also included the southeast connection for consideration for lane. That ends up being off-site for this one. So that's one of the reasons the east connections were considered when we looked at the big picture, was total circulation, but that also did include the southeast corner access as another ingress and egress from there.
Is the southeast corner access a requirement as we would approve as it's drafted, one way or the other?
If that were to be a selling point, we could certainly, at this point, draft that that southeast corner needs to happen in order for the public safety. And then whether or not it's because Fairway Shores has moved forward or they've secured the easement, then that's something we can work through. Because I will just add to the Fairway Shores, without this or without development on this property for the foreseeable future, will only have one access, and that's 75 homes. So that,
We'd be creating the problem we're trying to avoid.
exactly.
Okay. With regards to construction traffic, very sympathetic to that idea. That can only, is there a way to put into the agreement that construction traffic will come along Maple Hill Road and use that exit versus?
Well, that's
the
where,
existing-
thank you for that clarification. That was, so that is, I believe their main intent would be to use Maple Hill. They're not planning to go through Bass Lake. Bass Lake, again, that's Fairway Shores that will be having construction going through Bass Lake, and all the more that they would have to rely on that without any kind of alleviation.
Is that in the?
No, it's not in there, but we could certainly put something to that
Okay.
effect, that
Yeah.
construction traffic should utilize Maple Hill Estates. Not
I would
Maple
like
Hill
to do that.
It's not Maple Hill Estates.
Yeah, not Maple, no, don't utilize Maple Hill Estates, please don't. I apologize, but yeah,
Sorry,
we could
Cameron,
add
what was
that.
I would support making an amendment to add a requirement so that we have something we can enforce against later
Okay,
if we need to.
You making a note of that, Natalie?
yeah.
The only thing we'll note is we have a hard time if we can't differentiate between, from a practicality standpoint, the construction versus resident emergency services. And so similar to like where we had Bellwether at Hunter's Ridge, right, we can't, because there's construction traffic coming all hours of the day and during the night, that's fine to add it, we can't differentiate the truck. We might have to put some sort of barricade in there that only allows emergency response for an interim condition. We have to make that decision of when we transfer from just allowing people to navigate through.
The development agreement isn't something we can pull over something that looks like a construction traffic that happens to be a resident. So when we look at the enforceability, it ends up being at the development level. It's hard from a public safety standpoint to discern.
They're not public streets at that point, right?
It's,
Generally not.
Yeah, so it's hard to enforce.
Private streets, and it's hard when
Yeah,
they're
with
half
public
built out,
laws.
when half the houses are people living in them and the other half are being constructed, how we keep the construction.
Yeah.
You can't let the people living, so we can do, like, you can do those things, but keep in mind, it's probably shut down in a way, no one can travel through it until a certain transition point.
Yeah, because once they're public, anyone can go on it for any reason, unless they're over the weight limit. But if they're private, it's hard to send the police department out there because it's private property.
Well, to some extent, it is an open development, so we do have right of access.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't know how tight you can control the vehicles.
Yeah, I think we could certainly set the expectation. It may be challenging with Fairway Shores, since they are using it, to determine which development one are going to the other, but I think working with the applicant team is something that they could certainly work with their contractors, that this is the expectation. So I don't think there's any harm in including that that is the expectation in the resolution. So I think as far as logistics, there may be some challenges, but we can certainly have the message out there. Oh, yeah.
Maple Hill
they could come on up.
Are comments permitted?
I just
And the applicant will.
just clarify, Maple Hill will be a public street at the time, because it's already a public street,
That's true,
right?
yes.
So you could enforce that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
One other consideration, and I think, can I speak or?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is different from what planning saw it in a good way. But maybe there is proper buffer, but, you know, the open space, and I think that might be the gazebo again, I haven't studied it, but being right on the corner of a public road and perhaps traffic being at a significant more volume than it was, like proper buffer. People are gonna be hosting family reunions in that gazebo. There's gonna be kids running around. People are gonna be tossing the frisbee to their dog. If it's on the corner of a road, proper buffer, so people aren't running into the street.
I appreciate that comment. That's a great point, Commissioner Lind. I will say that there's an 85-foot structure setback for the other homes. This doesn't quite look like it's meeting that 85-foot setback, but there's certainly room, I think, to shift it a bit to the east to meet that same setback. would that alleviate that concern, do you think, 85 feet?
Yeah, or something that wouldn't, you know, a kid wouldn't just be able to
Sure,
access the road.
Sure.
Something that would buffer it or stop them from doing that.
sure.
Yeah.
Is there buffer plantings required?
There's no buffer plantings required. I haven't, we could require some addition, we could ask for some of the landscaping to be located in that area.
Well, I just want to use some caution as far as sight lines too. If you're planting it to conceal it, you're also stopping people from seeing. You know, so there's a planning element if you're doing that.
So we don't necessarily want it to be a buffer, like one of our heavy buffers, but we could probably use maybe our setback buffer, something along those lines where it's about every 100 feet, there's one overstory, one coniferous, 2 understory, and some shrubs.
If you advance a slide or two, I thought there were some plantings along that edge.
Yeah, it did look like there was some, but.
Was it?
Maybe it was the other direction.
Yeah, it does
There.
look like there are some plantings. That's a good
A
point.
little bit on one corner.
Yeah, so it does look like there are some plantings. So we could certainly make sure that in the landscaping plan, we're showing a variety of plantings in that area.
I'll weigh in. I don't see the public benefit being enough to vote for the PUD.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this application.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion? Second.
I haven't given my opinion yet.
Yep.
I would like to discuss.
Yep. That's where I'm going next. Any further discussion? Jeremy?
So, I like a lot about this application.